So, Michael, we're here today to talk about destructive weld testing. I know that this is something that is relatively new to our industry. It shouldn't have been new to our industry, but it is. So I'm just curious, what are some of the things that you go through with the OEs that you work with, and what are some of the processes that you do at your stores?
Well, Barry, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. This is an important step and one growing up in the business that we certainly didn't do.
Right.
But today, with all the substrate differences, it's so important. And so that destructive weld test is taking and welding those two panels together of the same substrate and then actually trying to break the weld to see if it will hold. Give you a good example of how important this is. We do a lot of internal filming for our own training modules. And one of our certified welders doing a destructive weld test for the purposes of training and got done with the weld, showed it on video. It appeared like a good weld, and then went through the destructive test and it failed.
Wow.
And it was eye-opening to us because in a lot of circumstances, people would have moved forward just with the visual test on those welds. And had we done that, and that vehicle get hit in the same area, then those welds will likely fail in the accident, creating obviously a dangerous situation.
Sure. Yeah, we actually, so we utilize a company called Custom Shearing that I believe iCar uses and basically you can get the mock-up of whatever panel that you're working with and test it prior. So how we do is that we have weld centers at our facility. They're weld test centers, and they actually will do and perform the weld there, and it replicates a lot of the OEs that we work with. It replicates their testing centers. And what we do is when we go through that, we can then see and improve upon our welds. Because I think there's a lot of times that, to your point, that you do the weld looks great. You do the weld itself, and then you do the destructive test, and it doesn't work. So, I would say, to me, it's very similar to the plane that we rode here on, okay? I assume, I hope, and frankly, I pray that the teams there that went through and checked that plane out each and every time it goes somewhere. I think that's very similar to what we have to do. It has to be a part of our process. It has to be, and candidly, we need to document it to show that we actually did do it. And again, I think that from a future liability, that does absolve a little bit of that as well.
Sure, and the shop has to be very, very disciplined and committed to that level of quality. And there's so many factors that could actually steer them away from that.
Sure.
Where it's just the need for speed or trying to convince the bill payer why it's necessary. But documentation, like you said, is super important, and the fact of actually verifying to make sure that we're putting that car back together with safe and proper welds, so it does respond the same way in a subsequent accident.
Right, because the days of us being able to walk up to a welder and just start welding, they've been over a long time because there's so many variables in substrates, there's so many variables in technique. I don't know how you can't do this.
If you found today's tip helpful, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. Comment below for any future suggestions.
These videos are made possible by SCRS. If you aren't currently a member, I encourage you to join. Visit scrs.com or use the link in the description below.